Highways at night are not the same as highways during the day. In daylight, the road feels alive, traffic moving in every direction, families in minivans, workers commuting, bright blue skies overhead. But when the sun goes down, everything changes. The cars disappear, the world empties out, and the highway becomes a different place. Truckers know this feeling better than anyone. When you're driving an 18-wheeler at 2 or 3 in the morning, the world outside feels endless. Your headlights cut 2 pale tunnels through the dark, but beyond that glow is nothing, just blackness stretching forever. The hum of the engine is the only sound, steady and constant, like a heartbeat. Sometimes the road feels like it never ends, mile after mile after mile, with no towns, no gas stations, not even another pair of headlights to remind you that you're not completely alone. The night plays tricks on your mind. Shapes move in your mirrors. Shadows shift at the edge of your vision. You start to wonder if you're really alone out there, or if something is moving just out of sight, waiting. Some truckers say it's just fatigue, that sleep deprivation makes you hallucinate. And sometimes that's true, but not always. Because there are stories told at truck stops, whispered over coffee in the early hours, that speak of things far stranger. Figures on the side of the road that vanish when you stop. Phantom convoys of trucks that never existed. Rest stops where something knocks on your door long after midnight. Truckers spend more time on the road than anyone else. We see more of the night than most people will in their entire lives. And some of us, we've seen things we'll never forget. So buckle up and keep your eyes on the road ahead. These are not just stories. They're warnings. Because the highways at night are long, lonely, and dark, and you never know what might be waiting for you just beyond your headlights. I've been a truck driver for most of my adult life. 15 years of long roads, empty nights, coffee-stained logbooks, and the kind of silence that can drive a man insane if he lets it. Trucking isn't glamorous like some people think. It's not freedom and adventure. It's hours of staring at a straight line, loneliness eating at you, and the constant hum of an engine that feels like the only heartbeat keeping you alive. I'm not the kind of guy who believes in ghost stories. I've always been practical. To me, a noise in the dark is just the wind, a shadow on the road is just a tree, and an empty highway is just another job. At least, that's what I believed, until one night on Route 50, deep in the Nevada desert, something happened that I still can't explain. Truckers call it the loneliest road in America. And believe me, that's no exaggeration. You can drive for hours without seeing a single pair of headlights. The landscape is barren, endless stretches of desert scrub, jagged mountain ranges in the distance, and a sky so wide it swallows you whole. During the day, it's hot enough to cook you alive. At night, the cold cuts straight to the bone. It was late autumn when it happened. I was hauling a load of canned goods from Sacramento, California, to Denver, Colorado. Nothing unusual about the run, except for the fact that I had to take Route 50 overnight to keep on schedule. I'd done the drive before, and I didn't like it. There are no streetlights, no service stations, and barely any signs of life once you leave Fallon behind. But I told myself I was a professional. This was just another job. I left Fallon around midnight, after topping off my tank and grabbing a black coffee that tasted like burnt tar. The clerk at the gas station, an old guy with watery eyes, looked at me as I paid. He asked, "You talking 50 tonight?" "Yeah," I said. "Why?" He hesitated, then shrugged. "Just stay alert out there. Long road. Gets strange at night." I laughed it off, but the way he said it made me uneasy. Truckers live by gut feelings, and mine told me he wasn't just talking about drowsy driving. By the time I was an hour into the desert stretch, the world had gone completely silent. No other cars, no radio chatter on the CB. Even my cell phone was useless, no bars, nothing. Just me, my rig, and the endless dark. The desert has a way of making you feel small. My headlights carved out 2 narrow tunnels of light ahead, but everything else was swallowed in black. Sometimes I caught movement at the edge of my vision, shadows that disappeared when I turned my head. My mind played tricks on me, shapes shifting in the distance, like people walking or animals darting across the road. But when I looked again, there was nothing. I kept driving, trying to distract myself with the steady rhythm of the engine. The digital clock on the dashboard glowed 2:17 a.m. That's when I saw her. At first, it looked like a shimmer on the road, like heat waves, but there shouldn't have been any heat in that cold desert night. I squinted, leaning forward. My headlights lit up the figure of a woman standing on the shoulder, waving her arms. I slammed the brakes harder than I should have, and my trailer rattled behind me. 1,000 thoughts went through my head at once. Maybe she was a hitchhiker. Maybe she'd been in an accident. Maybe it was a setup for a robbery. Truckers share stories about scams like that. Someone lures you in, and when you stop, you get jumped. But she looked different. She was barefoot. Her long white dress looked out of place, like something from another time. The fabric blew slightly in the cold wind, though the air inside my cab was still. Her hair was black, tangled, and hung down past her shoulders. I couldn't see her face clearly yet, but I knew something was wrong. I rolled the passenger window down a crack and leaned toward it. "You okay?" I called out, my voice shaky. She didn't answer at first. She just walked closer, her bare feet crunching softly on the gravel. When she stepped into the beam of my headlights, my stomach dropped. Her skin was pale, almost gray. Her eyes were too large, dark and glossy, reflecting the light like an animal's. Her expression was blank, but her lips moved as if whispering something I couldn't hear. Finally, in a flat, almost robotic voice, she said, "I need help." Every instinct in me screamed, "Don't do it. Don't let her in." But my hand was already reaching for the passenger lock. "What happened?" I asked cautiously. "My car," she said, her voice hollow. She lifted her arms slowly, pointing behind her. "It crashed. My friends, they need help." I looked past her into the darkness. My headlights showed nothing but road and desert brush. When I turned back, she was closer. I hadn't seen her move, but she was standing almost at the steps of my cab. My breath hitched. "Listen," I stammered. "I'll take you to the next town. We can call for help there." She tilted her head to the side, like she didn't understand, but then she slowly reached for the handle and climbed into the passenger seat. The temperature dropped instantly. My breath fogged in front of me, even though the heater was blasting. The smell of rot filled the cab, faint at first, then stronger, like old, wet earth mixed with something dead. She sat silently, hands folded in her lap, staring straight ahead. "What's your name?" I asked, trying to sound calm. No answer. I glanced at her. Her lips were moving, but no sound came out. She looked like she was mouthing words, maybe a prayer, maybe something else. I focused back on the road. My palms were slick on the steering wheel. The silence was unbearable. I turned the radio on, just static. I tried the CB. Nothing. After 10 minutes of driving, she lifted her hand and pointed again. "There," she whispered. I followed her finger with my eyes, and that's when I saw it. A wrecked sedan lay crumpled against a rock outcropping off the shoulder. Its roof was crushed, the windshield shattered. My headlights illuminated the inside. 3 bodies, bloodied, twisted, unmoving. I felt bile rise in my throat. I turned to her. "Is that your car?" The seat beside me was empty. I slammed the brakes, my heart pounding. The air was ice cold now, so cold it burned my skin. My breath came out in thick white clouds. I felt a presence behind me, in the sleeper cab. I didn't want to look. I knew I shouldn't. But slowly, against every instinct, I turned my head. She was crouched on the bunk, her hair hanging over her face, rocking back and forth. A sound filled the cab, a wet, rasping breathing that didn't belong to me. Then she lifted her face. Her eyes were bottomless black pits, her mouth stretched impossibly wide in a silent scream. Her skin cracked like old porcelain, and a dark fluid seeped from the brakes. The lights inside the cab flickered. The radio exploded with static and whispers, voices overlapping in a language I didn't understand. I shouted and slammed the brakes again. My truck skidded, tires screaming against the asphalt. She lunged forward, then vanished. Just gone. I sat frozen, hands locked on the wheel, sweat dripping down my face even though the cab felt like a freezer. The wrecked car was still outside, with its 3 dead passengers. But she was gone. I didn't stick around. I jammed the truck into gear and tore down the highway, not caring about the speed. I didn't stop until I reached Fallon. My hands were still trembling when I stumbled into the police station and told them everything. The officer listened quietly, then nodded. "We know about that crash," he said. "Happened back in 2009. Group of college kids lost control late at night. All of them died on the spot." I shook my head. "No, you don't understand. I saw them, and I picked up the girl. She was in my truck." The officer's face darkened. "You're not the first driver to say that," he said quietly. "We've had reports for years. A woman in white flagging down cars asking for help. But she never makes it to town." I left that station with my skin crawling. I still drive Route 50 sometimes. Truckers don't always get to choose their routes. But I never drive it at night. And if I see anyone on the side of the road, no matter how desperate they look, I don't stop. Because I know what's waiting in the dark. I've been driving long-haul trucks for years, and I'll tell you this. Highways look safe during the day, but at night they turn into something else. I've seen things in the dark that I can't explain. Strange lights over cornfields, shadows darting across empty roads, figures that vanish the second you blink. Truckers tell stories at diners, and most of the time it's just talk to pass the hours. But every now and then, you hear something that feels too real, too detailed, too consistent across different drivers. This story is one of those things. It happened to me on Interstate 40, somewhere between Oklahoma and Texas, about 4 years ago. I had just finished delivering a load of frozen chicken to a warehouse in Tulsa and was heading west toward Amarillo. It was one of those stretches of highway where there's nothing for miles, just road, billboards, and the occasional gas station with one flickering neon sign. I left Tulsa late, so by the time I was deep into Oklahoma's flatlands, it was past 2 a.m. My eyelids were heavy, and I knew I needed to stop soon before I risked falling asleep behind the wheel. Truckers live by the clock. We push ourselves harder than we should sometimes, but we also know when we're at the edge. That's when I saw the sign, rest area, 2 miles. Perfect. I slowed down and pulled in when I reached it. The lot was nearly empty except for one sedan parked way off to the side and an old RV with its curtains drawn. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, giving the place a sickly yellow glow. I parked my rig near the back, shut off the engine, and let the silence settle. Rest stops at night have their own kind of atmosphere, quiet, too quiet, like the world has been abandoned. Sometimes you hear the hum of insects, sometimes the distant rumble of another truck pulling in, but mostly, it's just you and the emptiness. I got out to stretch my legs. The air was cool, with that faint dusty smell you get in the plains. I walked to the restroom building, my boots crunching on the gravel. The building was old, concrete with peeling paint, and a buzzing light above the doorway. Inside, it smelled of disinfectant mixed with something damp, like mold that never really went away. The fluorescent lights flickered, buzzing like they were struggling to stay alive. I did my business quickly, washed my hands, and splashed some water on my face to stay awake. When I looked up at the mirror, I froze. For a second, just a second, I thought I saw someone standing behind me in the reflection. A man, tall, thin, with sunken eyes. But when I turned around, the bathroom was empty. I told myself I was just tired. Sleep deprivation can make you see things. Truckers hallucinate all the time when they push too far. I shook it off, walked back to my truck, and climbed in. I locked the doors, closed the curtains in the sleeper, and lay down. The silence pressed in, heavy and uncomfortable. Usually I can fall asleep anywhere, but that night felt different, like something was watching me. Then I heard it, 3 slow knocks on my passenger door. I sat up fast, my heart pounding. I checked the clock, 3:08 a.m. Who the hell knocks on a trucker's door at 3 in the morning in the middle of nowhere? I didn't answer. I just sat there, holding my breath. The knocks came again, louder this time. "Who is it?" I shouted, trying to sound confident. No answer. I pulled the curtain back just a little to peek out. The lot was empty. The sedan and the RV were still there, but no one was near my truck. I thought maybe it was kids messing around, but something in my gut told me otherwise. I tried to calm down and lay back down, but then, scrape. A long, slow scraping sound along the side of my trailer, like metal on metal. I jumped up, grabbed the small flashlight I keep near my bunk, and opened the curtain fully. My headlights reflected on the lot, but I didn't see anyone. I considered starting the engine and just leaving, but part of me wanted to know what was happening. I opened the driver's side window just a crack and listened. Silence. Then, clear as day, a voice whispered right next to my ear, even though the window was shut. "Let me in." I whipped around, my heart in my throat. The cab was empty. I slammed the window shut, locked it tight, and sat there trembling. I didn't move for what felt like an hour. At some point, I must have dozed off, because the next thing I remember was waking to daylight streaming in through the cracks in the curtains. Relieved, I got out to do a walk-around check of my rig. That's when I saw it. On the side of my trailer, long, deep scratches ran the length of the metal. Not dents from another vehicle. Not random scrapes from a branch. They looked deliberate, like something with claws had dragged itself along the side. I stood there staring, my stomach cold. When I went inside the restroom again to splash water on my face before leaving, I noticed something I hadn't seen the night before. On the back wall, scratched into the paint, were words. "We wait at night." I don't know who, or what, was out there at that rest stop, but I've never pulled into mile marker 86 again. And whenever I stop at a rest area now, I don't just lock my doors, I check them twice. Because sometimes, it's not just the loneliness that haunts you on the road. It's something else. Something that waits in the dark, just outside your truck. I've heard a lot of stories in my years on the road. Truckers talk. We share weird things we've seen, strange people at truck stops, animals darting across highways that don't look like any animal you know. Most of the time, you laugh it off. You think that guy was tired. He was seeing things. But not this one. This one happened to me on Highway 93 in Arizona, about 7 years ago. And to this day, I can't drive a convoy, not at night, not anywhere, because of what I saw. It was late summer, blistering hot, one of those nights where the asphalt still radiates heat long after sunset. I was hauling refrigerated goods out of Phoenix, headed north toward Las Vegas. It was a decent run, about 6 hours if traffic was light. I had my buddy Rick riding point in another rig, and another trucker, Miguel, trailing behind me. We were running 3 rigs together, which truckers sometimes call a mini convoy. Running in a small group always feels safer. You keep each other awake on the CB, warn about cops, road hazards, or drunks swerving into lanes. Out there in the desert, it's easy to get lulled by the straight road and fall asleep at the wheel, so we joked around on the radio, kept each other sharp. By midnight, we were deep into the desert stretch. No towns, no lights, nothing but black highway stretching straight into the horizon. The moon was a sliver, barely enough to see the mountains in the distance. Rick was about a half-mile ahead of me, his taillights faint red dots against the dark. Miguel was maybe a quarter-mile behind. It felt good to have them close. Out there in the desert, you don't want to feel alone. We passed through a long stretch with no exits, just endless two-lane road and desert brush. I checked my clock, 12:47 a.m. The road was dead quiet, not another car for miles. That's when Rick's voice crackled over the CB. "Hey, you guys see that?" I grabbed the mic. "See what?" "Up ahead, on the shoulder. Looks like a rig pulled over." I squinted through the windshield. Sure enough, about a mile ahead, I could make out the faint glow of hazard lights blinking on the right shoulder. "Breakdown?" I asked. "Guess so," Rick said. "Gonna slow down as I pass, just in case." As Rick approached, his taillights dimmed slightly. I could see the shape of the other truck now. It was old. Real old. The kind of rig you don't see much anymore. Rounded cab, faded paint, looked like something from the 1970s. Rick's voice came through again, tense. That truck's running. Engine's on. But I don't see a driver. That sent a chill through me. I watched carefully as my headlights lit the broken-down rig. Sure enough, the cab was idling. Exhaust puffed from the stacks. The hazard lights blinked rhythmically. But the driver's seat? Empty. I slowed as I passed. The trailer was a faded white box trailer, rust along the edges, no company markings. The tires were worn down, the chrome was dull, like the thing hadn't been maintained in years. Creepy, Miguel muttered over the CB behind me. I agreed. Something about that truck didn't sit right. I wanted to pull over and check, but my gut told me to keep moving. We all passed it and kept rolling. The radio went quiet. About 20 minutes later, Rick's voice came back. Guys, you seeing what I'm seeing? I leaned forward. In the distance, I saw faint lights, several of them. As we got closer, I realized they weren't cars. They were trucks. A convoy of 3 rigs, driving side by side. Now truckers don't drive like that. It's illegal and it's suicide. Highways aren't wide enough for rigs to run 3 across like that. But there they were, 3 massive rigs, old-looking like relics from another time, blocking the entire road ahead. They moved slow, steady, like they were waiting for us. Rick cursed over the CB. What the hell is this? I gripped the wheel tight, my stomach turning. My headlights caught the first of them. It was the same kind of rig as the one we'd passed broken down earlier. Faded paint, rusted chrome, old box trailers. No company logos. Just blank. But the worst part? I couldn't see any drivers. The cabs were lit faintly inside, but the seats were empty. Steering wheels turning on their own. Nope, Miguel muttered over the CB. Nope, nope, nope. This ain't right. We slowed down, keeping our distance. The 3 rigs ahead drove perfectly in sync, like they were tethered together. Then, as suddenly as they appeared, their taillights flickered and vanished. Gone. The road ahead was empty. Rick swore loudly. Did we all see that? We all did. We tried to laugh it off, said maybe it was fatigue, tricks of the desert night. But deep down, none of us believed that. About 10 minutes later, I checked my mirror, and my heart froze. Behind Miguel's truck, about 50 yards back, 3 sets of headlights had appeared. The same rigs, the same formation. They were following us. Miguel, I barked over the CB. Behind you. Don't freak out. He looked in his mirror, and his voice cracked when he spoke. They're on me. Jesus Christ, they're on me. The 3 rigs kept a perfect distance, their headlights glaring bright, too bright, almost blinding. Rick shouted, "Punch it! Everyone floor it!" We did. My engine roared, gears clunking as I pushed my rig harder than I should have. The speedometer climbed past 80, 85, 90. The desert blurred by. But the rigs behind us kept pace. Perfectly. They didn't lose ground. They didn't gain. They just followed like shadows glued to us. My mouth was dry. My hands hurt from gripping the wheel. The CB crackled with panicked breathing, curses, prayers. For almost half an hour, they tailed us, never changing distance, never making a sound. Then, one by one, their headlights flickered, and they vanished. The road behind us was empty. We didn't stop until we hit a truck stop near Kingman. We pulled in together, engines hot, nerves shot. We parked side by side and climbed out, our legs shaky. Nobody said anything for a long time. We just stood there, staring at the desert road behind us. Finally, Rick broke the silence. That wasn't real. Couldn't be. But when I walked around my rig to check it, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Scratches along the trailer. Long, parallel grooves in the metal, as if something had been dragging its claws while keeping pace with me. Miguel called us over to his rig. Same thing. Scratches, dents, fresh, impossible. And Rick's? Same. 3 rigs marked. We went inside the diner, pale as ghosts. The waitress looked at us and said, "You boys look like you seen the devil." None of us answered. Later, I asked an old-timer at the counter about weird things on Highway 93. His face went still serious. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, you saw him, didn't you? The ghost convoy." I asked what he meant. He told me the story. Decades ago, in the late 70s, three truckers hauling freight together lost control on Highway 93. They were running tight, trying to beat the clock, when a drunk driver clipped the lead rig. All three went off the road, trailers flipping, tanks exploding. All of them burned alive in the desert night. Since then, the old-timer said, truckers see 'em sometimes. They run the road together. If you see 'em in front, you're okay. But if they get behind you, he shook his head, you don't let 'em catch you. We didn't sleep that night. We sat in the diner until sunrise, drinking coffee, staring out the window like scared kids. To this day, none of us run convoys at night anymore. And if I see another rig on the shoulder in the desert, I don't slow down. I don't look, because I know who it might be. The vanishing convoy, still rolling after all these years. Thank you for listening. If you like true horror stories, please like, share and subscribe so you don't miss the next stories. Until then, take care.